Hey, how's it going? Good to see you again today, talking about priorities today. And wow, what a word! What a word! We talk about our priorities, and maybe we should just talk about a priority, and really focus in on the nature of the word and the meaning of the word. Is that it means to focus? It means to put things in an order of importance. And that's what I want to help you do today on this short video, is maybe give you a couple questions to ask yourself, so you can determine and define your priority and where you should be focusing your energy, your efforts, your time. And I mentioned on Instagram I was going to be going live here and talking about our priorities and kind of how do we define them, and why should we have priorities. And the why behind it is that we're all given limited time. We're all given 24 hours in a day, 7 days a week. We don't know how long our life is going to be, and so we want to make the most of it. We want to make the greatest impact with our life while we're here. And so that's why our priorities are important. We can't do everything, and that's probably that can be a discouraging thing, to come to grips with and just say, well, I can't do everything that I want to do, at least not all at once. I have to figure out what I can do right now, and I have to determine what I'm good at and put my energy and effort into those things. And I want to read a quote. This quote is from Developing the Leader Within You 2.0. It's actually, I don't have the time to go into all of the teaching with it, but I will give you I'll share with you before we go today how you could participate in a training that I'm doing. But John says this, he says, John Maxwell says, when you say everything is a high priority, then nothing is a high priority. When you say everything is a high priority, then nothing is really a high priority. And that's just how it is in life. I remember reading a book about a guy that's a consultant, and he went to an organization. They had 22 top priorities. Yeah, right. 22 top priorities. And he said, you're going to have to get this down to like maybe 3. Maybe 4 is a stretch, but you've got to get this down really to 3. And the team leader met with their team. They talked. They called him back in a couple weeks later, and they said, we got it down to 21. And he says he always wondered how they determined to get rid of that one. Like, what was wrong with that one, that it was the one that got removed from the list. And so it's a funny story, but that's how most of us live our life. We have everything as a priority. Everything comes first. And the reality is, if everything's first, then nothing is first. And we want to make sure that we are prioritizing those things that are giving us the greatest return on our investment. And I was doing a sales training with an organization not too long ago, and at their event, they were highlighting a particular salesperson that was on social media and doing some activities, doing some video and different things. And they were like, hey, this is the person that we want you to model after. We just want to highlight them. They're really doing it. They're doing awesome. And a couple weeks later, I was with a different division within that organization, and I was talking to some other sales team members, and this same person came up, the person that was highlighted. And they were like, what they're doing isn't moving the needle at all in their sales. Like, I've looked at the sales, I've looked at the numbers, and what they're doing, that activity that they're engaging in, it may be great, that's cool, that's awesome, but it's not actually translating into increased sales, which at the end of the day, if you're a sales professional, that's what you got to do. And it's all about results. And so I found it so interesting that that activity was being highlighted as the activity to engage in, but it wasn't necessarily the activity that was bringing the results to the bottom line in sales. So now at initial blush, you might say, then just don't do that anymore. But in reality, maybe you should. And we'll talk about that in a moment. So I want to talk about priorities real quick. And I want to give you a couple questions that you can ask yourself as you're engaging in activities. Once again, why? Why do we care about our priorities? Why is it important to prioritize our activities? and our time because we have limited time. So that's why we must determine what is most important and really define it, write it down, place it somewhere so you know what is most important to you and your activities and what you're engaging in. And so here are a couple questions you can do to identify your priorities. You might want to write this down. The first one is ask yourself, what is required of me? What is required of me? So if you work in an organization, you probably have this defined for you. And it's very clearly stated that, hey, this is what we require of you. We require you to show up at a certain time. We require you to engage in these activities, make a certain amount of phone calls, send a certain amount of emails, get a certain result if you're in sales, get your team to do X, Y, and Z. There's probably some clearly defined stuff. So you have to know what is required of you. Now, if you're an entrepreneur, if you have more freedom and flexibility, this might be prove a little more challenging. You might have to take some time and really ask yourself, what obligations do I have? If you're an entrepreneur, what have you committed to already? What have you committed to your clients? That would be a requirement of you because you've already told them you're going to do it, so you have to do it. What have I committed to? What have I obligated myself to? Have I volunteered in a certain capacity? What have I already signed up for, obligated myself to? Or what does my leadership require of me? Once again, if you work in an organization, another question you should ask yourself is, what is rewarding? What kind of lifts me? What puts wind in my sails? What energizes me? What activities? It might be that going to a networking event is energizing to you. And now I want to go back to that original story that I shared about the guy who was doing social media videos, and at the end of the day, they weren't delivering to the bottom line. They weren't increasing sales. So they might not have increased sales, but they may have been rewarding for that particular person. They may have been an outlet for him to share his expertise, to maybe overcome a fear of being in front of a camera. Whatever the case is, there are other reasons why you could do something beyond just, is it delivering to the bottom line? So that's where you get into, do I find this activity rewarding? Is this lifting my sales? Is this energizing me? Does doing this activity does it prepare me for the long term and be more successful in the long term? So you might say, hey, exercising in the morning, that doesn't necessarily deliver to my bottom line result as an entrepreneur. But in the long term, if I'm going to be healthy and do this for a long time, I need to exercise. Or it might be one of those things where I just find it tremendously rewarding to go out and to exercise. So that's how you can prioritize. Is it required of me? Do I find it rewarding? And then number three, the third question I want you to ask yourself is, what gives me the greatest return on investment? So what activities that I'm engaging in, what is giving me the greatest return on investment? That's where you really have to look at the results of what you're doing and say, hey, when I make these phone calls, am I seeing a return? When I send these emails, am I seeing a return? When I go to these networking events, am I seeing a return on my investment of time? Is this working at the end of the day? Because we have limited time, talent, and treasures. So we have to take our talent, figure out what our talent is, and prioritize and use those talents in a way that's going to give us the greatest return on investment. Use our treasure, our money, in the way that's going to give us the greatest return on investment. Use our time in a way that's going to give us the greatest return on investment. So those are a couple questions you can ask yourself as you're looking to determine your priorities in your life and in your business if you're in business. But one thing I promised that I'd share with you before we go today is an opportunity to learn more about your priorities, to really hammer it out, define your priorities, maybe talk with some other leaders and mastermind together with other leaders that are working to better themselves the same way. And you can do that. I'm offering some mastermind groups, an online mastermind group and an in-person one if you're in the Fort Worth area, mastermind group where I'm going to get some like-minded people together, some leaders. We're gonna talk about some of the principles that are found in John's book, where I shared the initial quote, developing the leader within you 2.0. And whether you're brand new to leadership and this is new, these are new concepts, or you've been a leader for a while and you want to sharpen your skills, you want to continue to get better, this is a great opportunity for you to get around other people, to dialogue, not just learn, not just consume information. Right now, I'm just talking and you're listening, but in a mastermind group format, I'll talk briefly at the beginning to share a concept, and then we'll get to work around a table and really apply the concepts and the principles in that group to our own life and put together a game plan so that we can create a better future for ourselves and for the people that we lead. So I'll put some links available where you can sign up for that group. But I hope this helps you today with prioritizing, and you're able to take some time, maybe 10 minutes, and determine your 1, 2, or 3 priorities in your life and your business, and actually move the ball forward. So thanks a lot, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.